Hello and welcome to the Christmas pageant. My name is Rachel Hoffman and I am thrilled to be here to share with you about one of my favorite artists of all time. Her name is Rosemary Volpi and she is famous for doing the most incredible Father Christmases and Santa creations that you have ever seen. I am thrilled to have two of her wonderful 6-foot tall Santa Father Christmas creations here in the doll shop. I mean, they're just absolutely incredible, aren't they? So, one of the wonderful things that we have been excited about in the Christmas pageant is to learn more about Rosemary, and I was able to do an interview with her. Now, Rosemary is a pretty private person. She was a little bit nervous about doing an interview for a virtual thing. She didn't know about how we do virtual things and how it goes. And so visiting in person was also not an option because, everything that's going on. And she was most comfortable with having a phone call between the two of us. And she sent me some beautiful photos in the mail and having me report back on our conversation. So that is how our interview and our program is going to be today. I had a wonderful hour-and-a-half long conversation with Rosemary, asked her a lot of different questions, and was able to just hear her talk and have her reminisce about her amazing career and some of the wonderful things that she has made. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you my findings of our conversation and look at some beautiful photos and of course look at the wonderful Father Christmases that we have here and spend a little time together like that. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope, Rosemary, I know you're watching. I want to thank you so much for picking up the phone and sharing this time and this space with all of us. We are in awe of your work. We are interested in your work. It changed the context of doll and Santa creation forever. You are a game changer. I have never seen a Father Christmas ever that has rivaled yours, in my opinion. So I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with us and giving of yourself for this interview. So let's start off by looking at some of the photos of Rosemary's wonderful, wonderful work. So the first question I asked Rosemary was, so many of us love your creations and marvel at just how realistic and sensitive they are. I know you traveled to Italy and gained inspiration from classic art, which she did, and I asked her, do you remember the first time you said to yourself where you thought, I need to start creating these Father Christmas creations? And first and foremost, I want to share with you is that when we spoke a few times before the interview, and when the interview came, it was very emotional for her. She was on the verge of tears in a good way when she picked up the phone, because thinking about her career and everything that she has done, making her wonderful creations, it brought back so many good memories for her and from her life of being an artist and a creator, that she was glad to travel back and think about it. And so I thought that that was very special. So here was her answer to the question of when I asked her, when she had that, maybe that light bulb moment of, I need to start doing this. And she said, in the 1980s, I started collecting ornaments and decorations. I started looking at old images of Christmas Victorian time, and they used to send pictures. And she said that the photos, they were not of Santa, they were of Father Christmas. And he was a very saintly man. And I thought, okay, that is what I need to create. I did not see anything like that in that form. And so I saw them and I decided that that's what I needed to do. I was called to. And so she worked with a woman named Annie, who is Ruth Nett's daughter. And she started working to capture the emotion in the dolls. And she wanted to relay benevolence, kindness, and generosity in her work. Annie, Ruth Nett's daughter, showed me how to work with the clay, and she gave me a few lessons that were phenomenal. She taught me about anatomy and helped me make them as realistic as I could. Rosemary said she also researched creche figures. She said, I found a great book on figures and trees. I looked at incredible photos of angels and the Holy Family and the shepherd and the sheep, and they all had that antique look. I tried to incorporate my love of creche figures and Father Christmas. That was my goal, to make them look as realistic as I could. The emotion in the face is the most important part that I want to convey. She said, in 1989, when everything started, I was featured in a Christmas issue of a magazine, and it was exhilarating for me. It brought me to a whole different audience. I think she captured the emotion pretty darn well. It was so neat to listen to Rosemary speak. I recorded our conversation, and she's a very soft-spoken, just very gentle person, as you can imagine, and she's just so incredibly kind. So here was the next question. I asked, are you self-taught? And she said, mostly, but Helen Kish was always supportive and kind. Sometimes I would visit with her if I was stumped about something, and she was always supportive of me, which means a lot to me. I love that. I love that. I shared this information with Helen, and Helen asked for her contact information so that they can get in touch again, which I think is just so important and so special. So let's look at some more of Rosemary's wonderful creations. The next question was, what did you enjoy most, or what was one of your fondest memories of your time creating the Father Christmas and the Santa dolls? She said, oh my, that is hard, but it would have to be the people that I met. Some, many years later, are still in my life, and it was so wonderful, the experiences that it brought. One of my favorite experiences, one of the ones that sticks out the most, is I got to go to the White House when President Clinton was in office, and I was hired to help decorate the national Christmas tree in the Blue Room. I couldn't believe it when I got an envelope from the White House asking me to help decorate the tree with a theme of American heroes of the past. There were many artists that contributed with all different kinds of media. We were chosen to send in anything that we wanted that depicted these heroes. I decided on an immigrant mother from the past. I made a woman, and she was depicted in early 1900s. She is holding up her baby, and in my imagination, they are passing the Statue of Liberty, and she is holding up her child, and the baby is reaching out. It was my hope. It was about hope and love and sacrifice. In my imagination, maybe she left her home and parents and everything she knew to come to America to give her child a better future, hope, and a better life. She is a bit tired, for it has been a long journey, and the joy of the child and the reaching out the hand is what I loved about it. The mother is sitting on a trunk, and the family names are in there. I used my family names inside the trunk. I had my entire family write notes about their love of their country, America. My dad wrote such a moving and elegant tribute. I never heard my father speak this way before. It felt full circle for me. My grandparents immigrated from Italy, and here was their granddaughter, going out into the world, doing what she loves, creating and saying what I wanted to say through my pieces. I was representing them at the White House. I love that. And then she followed it with, the best part of my career was being able to create what was in my heart through my dolls and having people hear it and feel it. It was an incredible feeling to have someone understand what I am saying through my art. Being able to communicate with so many people is one of the most important things, and I hold this very dearly. I love that. All right, let's look at some more wonderful photos from Rosemary Volpi's beautiful body of work. I have been very curious about what they are actually made out of. So one of the questions was, are they all made out of the same materials, especially the faces? Oh, the faces were so important and so good. She said, mainly it was super sculpey in flesh tone. I also made all of the toys that the Father Christmases hold on their back. I made puppets with strings, and oh gosh, I just had so much fun. I would try and get to know the collectors as I was making my pieces. And if there was something special that they had collected, I would make that something and I would put it in the toy sack. I always made sure the toys were made in the vintage of the Santa. I was up in the middle of the night creating and working. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning and get up and work on them more. I worked for months and months and months on every Father Christmas, and I enjoyed every single minute. Don't you just love that? Don't you just love that? I just, sometimes I just, for all of us, wish that we can all find something, and maybe you have something that gave you that, where you just wanted to wake up and you couldn't wait to get up in the morning. When you're in a period of that in your life, just enjoy it. Rosemary did, and she just looks back on it with just the most fondest memories. It was beautiful to hear the enthusiasm in her voice and just how much she enjoyed her time doing this. And I am so grateful to understand. I didn't know that she made all of those toys. I can't even imagine the work involved on her creations. The next question I asked is, how many of the tall Santas did you make? Because we have 2, and I've always been curious on how many she made. And she said, I made 3 of them in my career. These tall 6-foot Santas were an engineering feat. I had to learn about carpentry to figure out so many things for them. So many of the things I did with my figures were a challenge, but I had a vision in my head. That is what I wanted to make, and I had to figure out how to do it. All right, let's take a closer look at these 2 marvels from Rosemary Volpi. We switch spots so you can see this one right here. This is the one that many of you might remember that is looking over my crib in a lot of the photos that I have shared from the past, from my mother's house. He's just so incredibly special. The other one lived in the living room, in my mother's living room, my mother and father's living room, until they came to live here. So they're just the best. So I asked Rosemary, how did my mother come to purchase both of these beautiful large creations? Did she find them in a magazine or at a show? I have always wondered. I know she got the first one, and then the second lived in your studio before she had the opportunity to purchase it. And I also remember going to Rosemary's house as a young child. So one of the questions was, I just really wanted to know how it all worked, how my mom met her, and how that all came together. And she said, I met your mother through a doll show. I couldn't afford anything in her booth, but she was always just so sweet to me. I saved up and I bought this wonderful composition doll she had. I was later selling my items to leave Denver, and she knew I needed to sell the items, and she repurchased it for the same price at my estate sale. She knew I needed the money, and your mother was so kind and loving to take it back that way. So I just love that. And I'm so glad that she shared that with me, just to share some more of my mom was always like that. She was just such a giving and kind person. But I just love that she met Rosemary at a doll show, and they obviously became good friends. My mother became a very good customer of hers. And that's why it's so important for us to keep up our community and to keep communicating with each other and being open to talking to people and meeting new people, because you never know who you're going to meet and where that's going to lead. So luckily, my mother and Rosemary met at a doll show here in Colorado, and obviously it blossomed into a wonderful friendship and now a beautiful story that I have the privilege of telling right now. Rosemary also said during our interview that the feelings that I'm going through right now and meeting and seeing these people again, they have become dear souls of my life, and that is a pretty special feeling. So I love that. So one of the other questions that I asked that I think was important is, I said, I know you are not creating Santas now, but as such a creative person, can you share some of the things that you like to do or that you are creating in your life right now? Because obviously she's always been a creative person her entire life. So where does that go? She's not making Santas right now, but the creation and the mind doesn't stop creating. So she said, I love to garden and create things for my home, like drapes and lamps. And I always want to redecorate and not always stay in the same scheme in my house. She said, I love Chinese art and Chinese china, and I am always chasing great decor. She said, I love to go to Ross or to TJ Maxx and find things and remake them. I love a great challenge and to make something and to figure it out. I love that. To share more about Rosemary, she said, I live alone. My beautiful granddaughter is living with me right now in my back apartment, and it is great to have her here. I have my companion named Rosie. That's her little dog. I love my house and my neighborhood. My family is close by, and I have a dear friend that lives within walking distance, and we have been friends for over 72 years. That's amazing. I live here in Burbank, where I started, and then I moved to Denver and then to Las Vegas for about 5 years before returning to Burbank. About just her daily life, she said, I do get down just like anyone else, but just something like you contacting me and going through all of this part of my life that I no longer have has been really joyful for me. It brought a lot of good stuff back, and I appreciate it very much. So that was such a nice thing for her to say. Here's the last question that I am excited to share with you, and it's for you. It's for you watching. I asked her, what would you want to say to somebody who is watching and sees your work and might want to start creating something of their own, but maybe is a little afraid to try? Because I wanted to ask this, and I always like to ask this if artists can share, because a lot of us see Rosemary's work and I mean, there's just nothing like it. And it's very inspirational for a lot of us. And Rosemary was very excited to know that maybe some of you seeing her work, seeing something like this will inspire you to make and to do your own. I mean, that's what any artist can. That's what they want to, is to inspire other people to have their creativity come out. And Rosemary said, make your work your own. When we start, we look at things and we admire things, and sometimes we use it as a model when we are making things, and it is educational. But before you get too far with it, make it your own, even if your own doesn't look like things and people you admire, their work. It is important that you have your own hand and your heart in what you are doing. And I love that, because sometimes I think we look at other things and we think, oh, it has to look like that, and it's the exact opposite. Make it your own. And Rosemary also wanted everybody to know that her beginning artwork did not look like this. This is, so she also wanted to say that, is that her beginning Santas did not look like this. So she started as, and she said, I started as an amateur. I was never formally trained, and I just practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced to get to where I am today, and her work that you have seen on the covers of magazines and winning awards and everything. So if you're out there and you're watching this, it doesn't start like this. Practice and keep on trying. That's all I can say. So furthermore, Rosemary said, don't be discouraged and always make. I think that's, for me, what has been very helpful every piece I did. So she said, make every piece that you did. So she tried to challenge herself. So by making the toys and by making all of the things that had to do with the dolls. So she sewed the clothes, she made the bodies, she did everything. So that was one of her biggest challenges that was very helpful to her. My first Father Christmas looks nothing like the later ones did. I wanted to grow and make it a challenge every day. If you have a recipe that works for you and you do it repeatedly, that is great. But for me, if I didn't challenge myself to try different things, you were never going to grow. But she also followed this with, this isn't for everyone. So this is what helped me. But she wanted everybody to know that most importantly, it's that people feel good about themselves and what they are doing. She wanted to stress this. Not everyone has to do what I did. And how you feel about what you are doing is most important. So I love that. So Rosemary, I wanted to know how she was able to expand and how she was able to change and evolve her work. And for her, it was by constantly challenging herself. But she also wanted to just make sure everybody knows that it's about your journey and what you want to do. So just stay inspired and just most importantly, love what you do. Last thing to say. So I said, what is one of the last things that you just want everybody to know and that you want to say? And she said, I want you to know how proud I am to be a part of this tribute. I know it is such a labor of love. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Rosemary Volpi and to all of you out there for spending this time with me and to listening to what Rosemary has to say. It is an absolute privilege to speak about her work and to present it to the world. If you've never seen it before, maybe you've seen it before and you didn't know who the artist is, I'm so happy to connect these two. She is somebody that has been, for me and for my mother, a very important artist. These pieces have been a part of my childhood. My cousins and family members, they never knew my mom's house without these wonderful pieces right here. So thank you, Rosemary, for your art. Thank you for sharing with us and being a part of this community and helping to further along a lot of the people that might be watching that are artists that look at your work and might be inspired. So Rosemary is a very open, wonderful person, and I just can't say enough. So Rosemary Volpi, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed this sharing of her work. If you have any pieces of Rosemary, or you have spoken to Rosemary, or I know a lot of you worked with her, feel free to share your memories and everything. So that's the point of all of this, is to just share and to celebrate beautiful art together. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much to Rosemary Volpi.